All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's town board meeting. It is 6 o'clock, so I will call the meeting to order. Thank you for being patient and working with us in a different location as the courtroom is being used. We can make it work, nice and comfy, cozy in here, and it'll be a great night. So we'll begin tonight's meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Terry Fenlon.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. All right, Jean, can you confirm that the meeting was properly advertised?
Yes, it was.
Perfect. And would you like to call the roll, please?
Certainly. Councilwoman Karen DeMay.
Present.
Councilman Terry Fennelly.
Present.
Councilwoman Adeline Rudolph.
Present.
Supervisor Jared Simpson.
Present.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I don't know if the written communications are out.
No.
We had them out last time. Not a lot in the last few days since we last met. This takes us to our first privilege of the floor. Is there anyone who would like to be heard at this time? I would. Okay.
Just briefly, Bob Finger with the Cheshire Volunteer Fire Department. On behalf of the department in general and these fellows and ladies with me tonight, I'd just like to say thank you to the town board for the negotiations to this point. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Anyone else at this time? Okay.
I'm Edith Davey. I am part of the Environmental Conservation Board. I'm here to voice my support for purchase of the property on County Road 16, the RSM property. It is strategically located where it would be an excellent buffer and filter strip for anything that's going on in the very precipitous hills to the west. It is a place where it would receive road runoff and will filter that from the lake. The lake is at risk from sedimentation, from pollution, from lawn chemicals, from the green algae, cyanobacteria. And this is a small place that is strategic and would be a great location for something like a kayak launch or minimal use area. 97% of the shoreline is privately owned. This would be a step toward more public access, even though it is small. And I would certainly support the town acquiring that property.
Thank you very much. Anyone else like Eric?
Hi, I'm Eric Obenauer. I live at 3641 East Ridge Run. I'm also on the Environmental Conservation Board and the Conservation Easement Project team. Can't forget the tree team.
And the tree team, yes.
I'm also here to support the purchase of the parcels on County Road 16. He was kind enough to state some of the points, but there are some key ecological advantages, critical ecological services that 460 feet of the shoreline buffer would serve. Also, as a paddler, as a kayaker, I wanted to actually park my SUV with the boats right strategically in the window so you would see that. That would be a wonderful put-in spot. It would be minimally invasive ecologically. I think it would be a major draw. The only put-ins we have is the north side of the lake in the city. We have Ananda Park and we have Woodhull. But many kayakers that I've spoken with would love to have a point-to-point route up and down the lake. We're a lot like mountaineers. We bag entire mountains. We like to paddle entire lakes. If you're on Main Street or any of these county roads, any weekend you will see dozens and dozens of cars and trucks with canoes and kayaks on top or back. The lake is a real draw for paddlers, and paddlers would like more access. They'll bring in business, they'll bring in recognition, and a point-to-point route will show up on a lot of local and regional paddling guides. I'd really like to see our lake, our town, be a paddling capital of this entire region. It's an expensive group of parcels. I understand that. I understand there's some ambiguity with the pricing, and that's not a small thing. I appreciate that. But the benefits of coming together and working on a paddling put-in, I think over the long run would be quite substantial. Thanks.
Thank you very much. set my timer before it turns off. I love that statement. Would anyone else like to be heard?
Yeah, Dave Sauter, I'm a member of the Town Parks Committee at Parks and Trails. I'd like to speak in support of the acquisition of the property on County Road 16 as well. We as a town are just running out of time for parcels that are of that size, so I think the town needs to look at that, hold that in consideration as well. The Parks Master Plan, you know, the thing that most people want is lake access. The surveys that we've done are lake access, so we need, my feeling is that we need to, I'm not speaking to the Parks Committee, but my feeling is that we really need to act on that. Just because the parcels like that are no longer available. This is probably the last one of that size that's in the town for sure, so I'd just like to throw my support in that corner.
Okay, thank you very much, Dave. Anyone else?
Yeah, Dan Casellas, I live on Emerson Road, a community member, and avid fisherman and kayaker as well. You know, I have a family here, looking forward to, you know, engaging them in the community and having this access. It sounds like the right timing, and certainly it'll draw a lot more to the community, outside the community, and just support the local community as well, so you got my support.
Okay, thank you. All right, anyone else? Come on in.
Am I allowed to speak on the budget or?
We will come back. We will have another privilege of the floor before the budget.
Okay.
So we'll come back. We will come back to that. What we're probably going to do is we do have the budget listed as priority to business. I'm going to move that to the end.
I would
So-
like to speak on the part of the fire department, Canandaigua Fire.
Okay, if you'd like to speak on that, you're perfectly welcome to do that right
Okay,
now.
now?
Yes.
When I moved to
If you could
Canandaigua,
state your name and address for the record.
Tom Lunn, Lunn, 3609 County Road 16. When I moved to Canandaigua 20 years ago, we had Canandaigua City Fire Department protection on Westlake Road. And for some reason, politics entered the situation and we lost the service of the Canandaigua Fire Department. And at that time, I called the interim supervisor, who was Jim Freilich, and I said, Jim, what's going on here? And he told me, well, Cheshire is gonna take over Westlake Road. And, but I said, well, what happens if I have a fire in my place? And he said, don't you worry. If you have a fire at your place, Canandaigua Fire Department will be called. They'll go to the fire. Well, that didn't happen, because there was a fire about 2 years later on Westlake Road, and everybody was called but the Canandaigua Fire Department. Bristol, DA, and I'm not sure who else, but it was not Canandaigua. So I'm here to support the Canandaigua Fire Department, and I would like to see them now cover Westlake Road. I'm not sure how far down, but I think the last time it went down somewhere near Foster Road or something like that. But I think with the $1 million properties that are on Westlake Road, I think we need a fully funded professional fire department covering that area. And the second thing, my second thing is that I understand the Canandaigua Fire Department is understaffed. And I'd like to see that staffing go up to the rate that's been requested. And then the last thing, and I think again, it's politics, but I think Canandaigua should be called one of the first, if there's a mutual aid, they should be one of the first called, rather than, the VA and Hopewell and Crystal Beach and all the other volunteer companies. So thank you very much for.
You bet. Thank you very much. Okay, anyone else? Mr. Westbrook.
Greg Westbrook, 4096 Onalina Drive. I just have a couple of quick comments tonight. One is, I have talked to a significant number of the people that work with the town boards or on the town boards, the committees, the folks that have other roles, the other besides board committees, and there's project teams, and there's CIC. And without a doubt, there's one exception to this. I did not talk to anybody on the bar, okay? But other than that, this community is excited about this opportunity. And they're excited about it for many different reasons. I find it very interesting also that there's a host of, I've heard probably 20, 30 different reasons why people are excited about it. And for us to continue to grow as a town and grow Ontario County, you know, does anybody know when Butler Schoolhouse Road was commissioned? Terry, do you know?
No.
I don't know either.
I thought these were just presentations, that question and answer.
Sorry, I just looked at you and just said, does anybody not, nobody knows? Nobody knows?
I believe it was a school until the 1960s.
Okay, 1960s, 5 maybe?
Was
Was it?
It was a school until the mid-60s.
Okay, so let's say 1970 for this conversation. I was on the planning board from 1991 to 1993. And the big projects then were Butler Road, Fox Ridge and all those things that grew around. And you look at it today, it's a mecca of folks that settled there because they wanted to have access to the lake. I'm convinced of it. And so if we're able to put another one further down, south of German Brothers, that's just an improvement to the overall community. This is not a Westlake Road issue or a Onalina Drive Road issue. There's nothing like that. It's an issue that really needs to be looked at from a complete perspective. And I just want to close with, I just believe in this project. And I hope you guys do too, because it's a game changer. And I'll tell you, I'll give you a quote. I won't give the guy that said it to me today, but one gentleman said, it's a diamond in the rough. Diamond in the rough. It's a raw diamond. It's ready to be harvested. And that scares some people, but it also should excite some people of what it can provide for this community. I really think it's a great advancement for this board to advance this activity. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Jim's fun in. You have to speak though, or no? No, we won't make it. All right, anyone else? Anyone else out in the hall would like to be heard?
Playing cards on there.
Are they? I thought I heard something going on out there. They're having way too much fun.
Your ruckus from the youth court.
I know. Oh, it's like it happening place tonight. All right, so thank you very much. We will have another privilege of the floor later on as we continue with the meeting. So as I stated, we will flop things out of respect for the people who are here for the resolution regarding County Road 16 3950. So what I would like to do is go ahead and do that resolution first and start out with that. Before we get to that, I would like to share a few thoughts and use my, use the floor for a few minutes. Doug, could you pull up that email that you sent? Since we're voting on this tonight, there's been much conversation amongst the board behind the scenes, trying to find other ways to fund the project. And in the discussions, I kept referring to another source or another entity that was getting involved, that was interested in the property. That entity is the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, the Department of Fisheries, who is interested in that location. They're interested in the lower, flat, accessible, the southern side. Yeah, it's all lower. I guess I'm thinking north, south, lower. The southern and more accessible side for fishing access primarily. So pretty much that green area down there that's with a circle around it. They are willing and interested to work with us to help us purchase the property. The way that it would work and the way that they had approached us, and I would like to thank Doug for communicating with them because this was not on the table in the beginning until a conversation that he had, and he brought that back, so I'm very appreciative for that. So they are interested in working with us to purchase the property. We would purchase the property, they would then reimburse us for the portion, for that southern portion of the property, where they would then make improvements. They would put a fishing floating dock, a kayak launch out in that area. We would not have any control of it. We would not have any ownership of it. They would own it, they would control it, they would run it, they would manage it, they would pay for improvements, they would pay for everything that would be done on the property, on the parcel. The problem is, there's still all those unknowns that we have, and I think that's a lot of the biggest part of the discussion that we've had and discussions that I've had with other people, where we would be waiting on the appraisal of the property. We would be waiting on the appraisals of that lower part because they would reimburse us based on what the appraised amount comes back at according to their own in-house appraisers. So we would have an appraised purchase price of the property. And then from that, we would extrapolate the amount that they would then reimburse us for that. Could take a while, could take up to a year that we would be floating that full amount. So I want to pop down to the just the numbers. So this is kind of this is where we are right now. You know, we've heard initially we were looking at about 1 point, you know, the number 2 years ago, and you know, and I remember when we first started talking about it, it was maybe 1.2, 1.5 ish. We could be up to 3 at this point. We honestly don't know. We're kind of in the middle there. You can see where the DEC came back with their thoughts on the property. And we're being a little bit more conservative at that 2.5. So going forward with that 2.5 million price, this is how it would kind of, you know, it would kind of break down. We do have other costs involved. We have closing, we have tearing down the building. We have other improvements that would be expected of us. Namely, we would eventually have to do parking lot, we would have to do trail. And it wouldn't be anything major if it were to be done. It would be pretty rustic and pretty basic and pretty natural. Okay, let's go down to that last. So as it stands now with that information, and I wanted to have that before we, you know, we make this decision, so everyone is aware of the numbers and where we are. So if we were to purchase the price at that 2.5 million, we'd be looking at 2.6. We would pull from other funding sources. We would pull from open space money. We would pull from the Parks Fund. We would pull from ARPA, which is the COVID relief money. We're not using the whole amount there. We've earmarked another portion of that to go towards County Road 28 sewers. And then the DEC estimate is $1 million. It could be, depending if the appraisal comes in lower, it could be 900. If the appraisal comes in higher, it could be north of 1 million, 1.2, thereabouts. But it's a little bit of a moving figure. That last, the Canandaigua Lake Watershed Council grant, that is an unknown at this point. We might have the possibility to access that money if we were to exercise the option. That's not a guarantee. It might create an issue. It might be something easy. It might be something very difficult that might not be able to happen. But if it were to happen, that would bring the money, that would bring the bottom line down. So I just wanted everybody to be aware, this is the discussion that we had. And because of the sensitive nature, because of the DEC being involved, because of the price and everything else, that's why these discussions were in an executive session as we were figuring out what the DEC was willing to do. But now that we're going forward and moving forward with it, with the decision, either up or down, it's important to have all the information, all the data out there. All right. So with that said, with that information said, I just want to, and I'll let every board member speak because we have been sitting on this for a couple of years. So I think it's important to have everybody have the opportunity to share their thoughts as we go through with this. I've gone back and forth quite a while on this parcel and on this property and on this piece. And I haven't been afraid to tell people that, you know, I'm not, you oftentimes don't want to sit on the fence, but it seems like some days I love it and some days I'm kind of, I have problems with it. It's not a perfect purchase. And I think everybody understands that it's not a perfect purchase and it's not a perfect parcel. Those have already been scooped up and they would be a lot more than what this would be. But as I was thinking, and I was going back to the beginning when we were at that number, when it was first presented to us at that 1.2 to 1.5, I supported it at that point because of the water. I didn't even care about the park. I didn't even care about the access or any other improvements, just for protection, water quality, source water protection, and all of those things. That's where I was on that parcel at that 1.2 to 1.5 point. As time went on, my mood changed on it a little bit, especially with the prices coming back from what the seller was thinking that they would get. And they were, you know, they came back pretty high with where they thought the parcel would be with the current market. So now that we are back into that 1.2 to 1.5 range where I was okay in the beginning, I have a real hard time saying, well, now I'm not okay with it where I was okay with it 2 years ago. I think it's important to make a commitment. We have talked about wanting to protect the lake and preserve it. Again, it's not a perfect parcel for protecting the lake. It's not a perfect parcel for preserving the lake. Much of it's unusable and probably wouldn't be developed anyway. But this way we could guarantee it. There are other things we can continue to do and must continue to do as far as remediation efforts to protect runoff and to protect the lake continually. But as it stands today, and as it stands with the numbers outlined, and as it stands with the information from the DEC being willing to enter into it, we wouldn't have to even entertain improvements down below, which could be $250,000 or so to improve the lower portion and put a dock out there. How many people will use it? I don't know. I don't think any of us know. You know, it could be 1, it could be 100, it could be 50, it could be 500. We just don't know. But at the end of the day, having that and protecting it, for me, at this point in time, I feel is the right point. So I will be supporting the purchase and I will be voting yes for the purchase when the time comes. Okay. Are there any other board members who would like to share?
I would like to speak if that's possible.
Okay.
I do, just so that you know, I do have this written and I can provide it to you, Jean, so you don't have to type it in if you would like. So
That'd be great.
yeah. So when I ran for election in the town board last year, I had an opportunity that was not available to everyone on the board to go door to door and meet over 1,000 town residents and learn what was important to them for the future of Canandaigua. Again and again, I heard that the health of the lake is number one, but more lakefront access is needed. Finally, they asked me to protect our open spaces and views. Residents with committee experience asked me to be sure to follow our existing comprehensive plan. As someone who became a town board member after serving in town committees, I know how much work and volunteer hours from dedicated residents went into those plans and how many hundreds of thousands of dollars we've paid for those plans. As a new town board member, it's important for me to consider what came before me and what the large majority of residents shared, either regarding this specific property through emails and speaking during privilege of the floor, or through the creation of our town plans. To show that this purchase will fill a long-awaited need, I've gone through our plans and our goals for the year and found the following instructions to the town board. The 2022 priority goals for the year for town board, agreed on by a multi-resident group at Ananda Park in September of last year, included 2 goals that this purchase helps meet. 1, permanently protect lands with natural resource significance and support recreation on protected lands. And 2, promote housing and development growth within identified growth nodes and discourage development in environmentally sensitive areas. The adopted plans that mention the need to acquire this property include the 2021 Town Comprehensive Plan, which 39 town residents and employees were acknowledged as taking part in creating. Quote, the town will protect its natural resources and scenic views which benefit the town and greater Canandaigua area, including Canandaigua Lake and its watershed. Quote, increase access to the waterfront through purchase, zoning, or some other means listed as a priority goal. Quote, identify opportunities to increase low impact enjoyment of Canandaigua Lake, such as kayaking or fishing. Quote, the town will support the conservation and maintenance of the land that provides critical open space and creates a network of linkages for wildlife habitat, stormwater management, scenic views, and active recreational trails. Quote, permanently protect lands with natural resource significance and support recreation on those protected lands listed as a priority. Quote, discourage development in environmentally sensitive areas. Quote, the town will improve and expand the active and passive recreational resources within the town to meet the needs of the community. Quote, partner with the city of Canandaigua, New York State, and other local municipalities in the provision of parks, areas, and recreation opportunities. And quote, explore opportunities to connect and extend existing trails. From the Parks Plan in 2007, we listed as a goal, seek means to acquire, gain use of, and or share with others the use of lake frontage for recreation. In the 2018 Parks and Rec Master Plan, quote, one of the greatest assets that the town has that few other towns in the region have is Canandaigua Lake. The town staff, committee, and public all state that expanding lakefront access should be a high priority goal for the town in the future. Expanding lake access is a noted goal within the comp plan from which this Parks Master Plan derives. Quote, acquiring parkland to serve as future population growth and resulting demand growth is crucial while appropriate parcels remain available. From the Parks Master Plan public meetings section, quote, higher stress on land acquisition should be considered, perhaps postpone park improvements by 5 years in order to allocate funds for land acquisition. Quote, creation of a more walkable system connecting parks, trails, and neighborhoods. Quote, incorporate more of the recommendations from the Trails Master Plan. Quote, neighboring trails within and linking neighborhoods. Quote, connect Lakewood Meadows Trail System to County Road 16 through existing easement. Quote, when a parcel becomes available, the town should not hesitate to evaluate the parcel and obtain it. The Town Trails Master Plan adopted in 2010 calls out this specific property as a potential trail connection. Quote, significant daily pedestrian traffic warrants the creation of one or more trails linking Middle Cheshire Road to County Road 16. These trails should be built along existing roads or may follow easements linking the two roads. Quote, the outright purchase of property is an important method for acquiring trail land. This would require use of the Town of Canandaigua Open Space Fund, Parks Fund, or General Fund, or the use of grants from federal or state governments. As more, quote, as more heavily developed areas of the town continue to fill in and expand, it is critical that trail corridors and easements become established and set aside. Trail corridors should link to the existing hubs as outlined above, in addition to utilizing existing and future easements through subdivision developments. Finally, and I'm sure you're all glad I got to finally, the funding for this plan, as Supervisor Simpson has indicated, will come almost exclusively from funds that were designated to acquire open space and expand our park opportunities, which is what they are there for. The Parks Fund, entirely paid for through a cost imposed when building new housing units in town, the entire point being that new residents need more park access for their families. I'd also like to remind everyone that while the town has many needs and places to spend taxpayer money, this is one opportunity which will never occur again. There are no other 485-foot pieces of lakefront in the town of Canandaigua that are not already occupied by a home. If we do not support this vote, the next generation will never have an opportunity to see the lake other than a glimpse between $1 million homes, a ride on their friend's boat, or a visit to Ononda or Schoolhouse Parks. We will know that we had a chance to change that and protect almost 500 feet of shoreline, just a half mile from the intake of a water system that serves almost 70,000 people. Protecting the lake is always our job as town board members. Protecting its open space should be our priority as well. For decades, town board members, supervisors, CIC members, and committee members have asked for this protection. We've had almost 40 families personally reach out to us in favor of this purchase, and many more today, with only 6 in opposition to it, without even knowing that approximately half of this cost would now be covered by New York State. I mentioned over 20 plan goals above from at least 5 different plans over decades, encouraging the town to acquire this property. If we're going to ignore engineered plans on which we spend hundreds of thousands of dollars and countless hours of constituent input and work developing, why do we make those plans? Please, I'm imploring you, think of what our planning documents have advised for over 15 years and what the residents here before you are asking for. and vote to exercise the option to purchase 3950 Westlake Road, protect the last 485 feet of open lake frontage in the town of Canandaigua, I will be voting yes.
Okay, thank you, Adeline. All right, would anyone else like to speak?
You have something written you want to?
I do, and
Go
I'll
ahead.
share it with you, Jean, after.
Thank you.
Sorry, Jean,
No, that's
I
fine.
didn't have my
I
head.
think it's great.
sorry.
When a town board member votes on a proposal before the board, that member is representing through that vote all residents of the town. Thus, a high personal responsibility rests on each individual board member. It requires that they exercise careful consideration in making important decisions which will affect the lives of residents and businesses. This was taken from Town Law Manual, New York State Association of Towns. I've read with interest communications regarding the pros and cons of purchasing property located at 3950 County Road 16. Many comments have been presented at town board meetings. I've initiated conversations with residents, those who live in close proximity to this property, as well as those living a great distance away, yet still town residents. I've reached out to knowledgeable water quality experts for information. Emails received have expressed both pros and cons regarding this potential purchase. The estimated price to purchase this property in January was $1.2 million, shortly after the potential cost to the town escalated to $3 million. How will the town spend taxpayer dollars should this pass? There have been creative figures circulating from various origins. I believe the town board members have well researched this potential land purchase. I would add there is also the possibility that the town might have to consider bonding in order to purchase this property. Bonding is essentially a loan which allows the burden of paying for this property to rest on the shoulders of all taxpayers in the town of Canandaigua. Bonding is spread out over a period of many years. Purchase of this property would increase the tax burden on property owners. Following the purchase, what will become of this property? What responsibilities rest with the town to protect, maintain, improve upon it, and at what additional cost? It has been suggested that the town should spend funds from the American Rescue Plan Act, otherwise known as ARPA, on this purchase. My understanding of how ARPA funds can be used: support public health expenditures to address negative impact of public health emergencies such as COVID, to replace lost public sector revenue, to provide premium pay for essential workers, and to invest in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. I do not believe this is proper use of ARPA funding. I agree with town resident Richard West, quote, that acquiring land along the lake should preserve the lake and the lakefront as a conservation measure is a good thing and worth consideration. However, the anticipated high cost of this parcel, added to the additional cost of making it publicly accessible and usable, would only add to the tax burden on the residents of the entire town without providing property that could reasonably be expected to see significant use, end quote. My vote will be no.
Next. I don't have any written, so you're gonna have to listen very carefully. Because I'm gonna jump around a lot.
It's just the grumpy guys. It's just us two grumpy guys who've done it.
Well-
Written for you.
I was going to quote a few things from Mr. West's excellent summarization of the situation. Karen beat me to it, but there are a number of issues that he cited: safety issues, ADA compliance, parking, privacy, people that this trail that would extend up into the Lakewood Meadows area. He outlined quite a few of those, and that's been available. That was in our agenda package for our last meeting. And for anyone that hasn't seen it, you can go back and see it. I've gone back and forth on this myself over time, since This was originally broached to us some time ago, a couple of years ago. My feeling is that I don't see enough definition in some of these numbers. We can say we'll take $850,000 from the open space fund. That we know we have more than that in there. We can take $350,000 from the park fund, because we know we have more than that in there. As far as the appraisals go, we don't know. We have no idea. You can say, well, it's probably $3 million. We don't know it's $3 million. To me, the whole thing that is driving the value of that piece of property is 150 feet of shoreline. If that 150 feet of shoreline, which may be worth $1 million, may be worth $2 million, if that wasn't connected to this, using that $1 million figure, taking that away from 3, I do not think that that piece of 20-foot strip going up the hill, Arnie Johnson's old house, and a little tiny piece of land and the lake road is worth $2 million. There's no way it's worth that. The whole thing is driving it is that piece of property that can be accessed. And we have no idea what that piece of property is worth until appraisals are done. We exercise this option, we're committed to buy it. There's no getting out of it. We have to buy it. Because of that, not knowing, that puts a lot of doubt in my mind. I've been involved in 2 of the biggest projects this town has taken on, very closely involved. The latest being the pump station and water towers we built outside Cheshire. We had quotes, we knew what we were up against, we knew what the cost was going to be, and we did it. We found sources to pay for it, and we paid for it. The highway garage, the highway building out behind us, equal. That was a $6.5 million project. The water project was $7 million. Those 2 added together are more than our annual budget. But we knew what we were up against when we went into it. I don't see that in this project. I just don't see it. A lot of the comments are made, source water protection. If we don't buy it, let's look at what's going to happen there. What's going to happen is Arnie Johnson's house will probably be torn down by the Mancinis, and they'll sell that lot. Somebody will build a house there. If the town of Canandaigua acquires it, Arnie Johnson's house will be knocked down, a parking lot will be built there. So we're going to build some impervious surface. There are no streams coming down off that property, so there's nothing running off there in either of those cases that is going to produce any more harm to the lake. Sure, the Mancinis could sell some lake frontage to people and say you could put a boat out there. Well, there are a whole lot of other boats on that lake. It's not just that parcel that would be putting boats on the lake. Everyone in this room has seen what happens at the north end of the lake in the summer, when you got 300 or 400 boats congregating off Kershaw Park. I'd be more concerned with that than I would another 10 boats at this parcel, if that were to happen, which we don't know that. None of us are clairvoyant. We can't see the future. To me, there just isn't enough definition to this. The costs are unknown, and I can't saddle the town with something like that, so I'll be voting no.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you everyone for your comments. Before I do open the resolution, we do have one more privilege of the floor. If anyone would like to be heard at this time.
Looking through the history of the documentation of this proposal, yeah, I have some mixed feelings too. It seems downright unethical that the seller can't give us a fixed price for a purchase. I'm not astute in real estate, so I don't know how that's even possible. So I hear your concerns. However, it doesn't sound like it could be more than the top number that Supervisor Simpson provided for us. This is the last parcel, so I urge the board, do not let perfect get in the way of the good. Years from now, how will we look back at this purchase? Thanks.
Thank you. Anything else? Add something else?
Yeah.
One of the numbers there, the 350,000 coming out of the Park and Rec Fund. I can't remember exactly how much we have in there, but a lot of the work that we want to do to expand Onondaga, to make it more of a draw for our residents, for tourists that want to come stay in our town. That's gonna siphon off a lot of that money, so projects that would be done down there, they have to be put off to some indefinite time in the future, so that's another concern I had. I forgot to throw that in there, so I'm done now.
If I could just speak one more time again, as you noticed, in my presentation, that was addressed in the Parks and Rec Master Plan, Terry, where it indicated that it would make sense to acquire properties, with that funding and wait 5 years to make improvements. That's actually in the Parks and Recs Master Plan. And also Supervisor Simpson and Manager Finch, correct me if I'm wrong, but this purchase, would be based on the two estimates. And then the money that would be paid to us from the state DEC would be based on an estimate as well. I would imagine if we were to purchase that at that higher price, they would also be paying a higher price that would sort of go in conjunction in their reimbursement to us, which would make those numbers a lot more solid over there that we're looking at.
Yes, that is, the DEC would pay whatever the appraisal comes in at. If it comes in at, as we said, 900,000, then that's the number. If it comes in at 1 or 1.5, then that's what they'll pay. Okay. Anything else, Adeline?
No, thank you.
Would anyone else like to be heard at this time?
This is not to change anybody's mind today, because I think you concluded that process. But I'll leave here today shortly, sad. Sad for a loss, sad for a community, sad for children. Because this is an opportunity that will never come again. And for that, I thank the two positive votes, Adeline and Jared, and I'm sad about the other two votes. Thank you.
Anyone else? I don't think we have many other people online, do we? Just a small handful, so I don't see anyone else. All right, so at this time, can I get a resolution now? We'll go to the resolution right now. Resolution number 241, directing the town manager to execute the purchase option for 3950 County Road 16. So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. As a point of discussion, I would like to just share one more thought, and I don't know if it will make a difference. But I respect everybody's opinion on this board, and I appreciate working with everybody, and I appreciate the fact that we can have disagreements and we can still keep working for things that we feel strongly and passionately about. So I fully respect everyone on this board and everyone for their positions, because they're all well-founded and they're respectful positions, and I do definitely appreciate that. I do, just one clarification, outdoor recreation is part of COVID for public health, so that can be used for that. So we weren't trying to put something, kind of slip something through. And at the end of the day, I do want to add 35 years ago, I don't remember how long it was, there was a Simpson in this chair who got a lot of grief when Ananda, well, he was sitting in that chair, he wasn't in this chair at that time, when Ananda was purchased. And there were people, I don't know if he was in that exact chair, but he was, and took a lot of grief. The board took a lot of hits. There was a lot of negativity in the public against that purchase, but it turned out pretty well. So if there's any glimmer or any last thought, maybe that can be the last thought going forward. So is there any other discussion?
I'd just like to note that we've had everyone who spoke tonight regarding this issue was in favor of it.
Except Terry and I.
Yeah, except two of us.
Okay.
Except the two people representing the people here tonight.
Okay, so Jean? Yeah, thank you. Can you call a voice vote on this one?
Sure can, absolutely. Councilwoman Karen DeMay? Councilman Terry Fennelly?
No.
Councilwoman Adeline Rudolph?
Yes.
Supervisor Jared Simpson?
Yes. Okay, so with a vote at 2-2, the motion does not carry. And the resolution, the purchase option will not be executed. All right. So moving forward, thank you everybody for your input and your interest. At the end of the day, we keep plugging forward and we keep moving forward.
Just one question. The notification to the seller will occur when? September 30th?
There is no notification to the
Yeah,
seller. The only notification to the seller
It's an
was
option.
to execute
Would
the
be if we
option.
execute it, so. it's-
When would he know, or they know, that the town has not chosen to execute the option?
Probably, I mean, probably pretty soon, but
Is there a
after
plan?
September 30th, I mean, we can reach out to them and let them know. If you want to reach out and let them know that we're not executing the option. Otherwise, September 30th, they haven't heard of, and that's really the understanding in the agreement. That is September 30th, if they don't hear back from us, if they don't execute it legally, then it's void. Okay, yep. Okay, let's do that one again. We don't want to go through and do that one again.
No.
So.
Painful enough.
We'll be here for hours. Okay, resolution 242, authorizing budget transfer in the highway fund for fuel expenses.
So you're going to do all the resolutions.
So, yeah, we'll do the rest of the resolutions now, and then we'll come back and
Are you going to do the minutes and the bills, all that right now?
yeah, let's do all that right now.
Okay.
Get it all taken care of, and then we'll just have the budget workshop, then you don't have to, then the
Yeah,
note taking will be pretty much taken care of from now.
perfect, thank you.
Okay?
Yep.
All right, so 242, authorizing transfer of the highway fund for fuel expenditures.
So move.
Second?
All right, moved and seconded. Any discussion on this? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Resolution 243, accepting Bergman Associates' proposal to prepare a sidewalk and visioning map and report for the town and authorizing the town manager to execute the documents.
So move.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on this?
Maybe,
Yes, go ahead, Terry.
I was just gonna say, maybe you could describe Doug for the people here that.
So basically what this is we released an RFP. You may remember you had previously authorized us to move forward with releasing the RFP, and we received 3 bids for helping us create a sidewalk envisionment map and plan. And essentially what this would be used for is looking at the town, and obviously we would never run sidewalks on every street in the town, but we're really documenting where we do envision the future build out, where sidewalks, where trails, pathways, those sorts of things would be. Based in part on a lot of the planning that's been done around this room with all these maps. And then also that gives the planning board something very solid that they can use when they're reviewing a development application, where they can say to the developer, Mr. Developer, you have to put sidewalks in, it's part of our envisionment map and that sort of thing. So we received 3 quotes. Bergman Associates, who has done a lot of work with us with this topic, came in at the lowest bid by far.
Yeah.
And they really detailed in their proposal, I think, exactly what we need and what we're looking for compared to the other 2 proposals that we received.
All right, Adeline, did you have a comment?
Yes, I did. I support this plan, and I think, Bergman has done a great job developing plans for us in the past. However, I would like to note that we're spending over $35,000 on a plan to help instruct our boards and our town board how to act in the future. And I don't see much purpose in spending money like that on plans that we do not pay attention to.
Okay, thank you. All right, moved and seconded. We've had discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, carries. All right, can I get a motion to approve the?
No, there's no minutes.
No minutes,
No.
no minutes. All right, Jean, can I get a motion, how about reading off the bills?
Bills, Town Board abstract dated September 21st, 2022, totaling $82,187.97. General fund of $67,565.84. Highway fund of $12,349.58. Water districts of $2,272.55.
So we got off pretty easy, but it's only been about a week.
Yeah.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve the bills?
So moved.
Second?
All right, moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Bills are carried, bills are paid. All right, I will offer, well, I'll offer one more privilege of the floor, if anyone would like to speak, and then we will move into the budget workshop portion of the meeting. So is there anyone who would like to be heard at this time?
Time for budget, or are you guys doing another one if you're on budget?
We'll do one more at the end. I'm not anticipating that we're gonna get through the whole thing tonight. If you'd like to speak before we start going through it, or we'll pause. I don't have a set time frame for this, I know we are gonna do another one. I've been asked by a board member to do another one, so we will. My plan isn't to be here until 9 o'clock at night, if that's okay with you guys.
Fine.
So.
Sounds like a good plan.
No, we'll check the time and we'll see how far we get and how far we go through this. I don't know if we have a budget to pull up, so, because we'll be kind of jumping around, so.
We do, normally we'll do the worksheets, and so we'll jump in,
Right.
like some of the special districts and that sort
Okay.
of stuff, and then we'll come back to the.
Okay.
All right, so you ready for that then? Or we're
Yeah.
gonna do another privilege of the floor first, or?
We will, you want to speak, you'll speak at the last one.
It
Does
doesn't
that
matter,
work?
it's about the budget, it doesn't need to do it now, or you tell me.
Why don't you do it now, if that's okay with you, and then, because it depends on where we get to at the end and where we are. All
My
right.
name's Corey Massif, I'm Vice President of International Association of Firefighters, Local 28, we represent the career firefighters in the city of Canandaigua. We sat through the chief's presentation a couple weeks ago, so we just wanted to take a couple comments. Our members are aware of the rising costs and how hard it is for you guys to ask for more money for the taxpayers. Most of us own our own homes, and we're taxpayers too, whether we're in this town or another town, so we get it. One thought we'd like you to consider is fire departments are like insurance. If you want good coverage, you have to pay for it, unfortunately. In 2018, both the town and the city paid for a study. That study suggested 4 firefighters on duty. And with COVID and everything, we're actually past that schedule. We're behind on that. So as that time has moved on, there's been more development in town. I believe you guys got a lot more planned in our coverage area coming up the 232 corridor. So we protect not just the people in those buildings, but we're also protecting the tax base and the financial stability of the area also. The package may never burn to the ground, we hope not. But even if there's a small fire in there, that can affect a lot of people's jobs, it's gonna, affect output, things like that. Also, everyone talks about shared services these days and, regional approach to save money and fire protection, town of Canandaigua and the city of Canandaigua. You guys have been doing it for a long time already. We encourage you guys to continue with that and to follow what the study asks for and move forward with it, giving the funds that the city needs to get the 4 firefighters on duty. At the September 12th meeting, it was asked by somebody on the board here, they asked the fire chief and the city manager if they'd approach other communities, because we're starting to respond more and more to those communities. I don't know if it's time or not to do that, that's not my wheelhouse, or the unions, but I think with what the town and the city have been doing and can continue to do and continue to grow our relationship, I think it's gonna prove that it's the right way to go. And when that time comes to ask those communities, you guys have already set the example of how it works. So at the end of the day, we just ask you to help with the staffing levels for the firefighter safety, for the community safety, and what we protect here. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I would add, building, anyone else like to be heard before I interject again? I heard that chuckle. I would add that the hope is that the county EMS fire study will have information at the end of September. So I know that was discussed at our last meeting, so the end of September, there should be some information back from that. All right, so we'll jump into the worksheets and away we go.
Sure. If we could start with the special districts, it'll allow us to warm up as we've done in the past, and then we'll move into some of the meatier stuff.
Doug, can I interrupt you? Can you just let me know what page you're on in the actual physical book as we go?
So I will do my best because what I'm gonna do is go by worksheets. So this worksheet that you're seeing on the screen right now is page 13. But the first thing I wanna jump into here is drainage districts. And so you would have to look through the details. So it's gonna be a lot easier for you to look at the screen than it is
Okay.
looking through your budget book, all right?
Thank you.
So what I'm gonna do here is just zoom in on this, so make sure everybody can see this, all right? So can you see that okay? Okay, so this first one here is the Route 332 Drainage District. So what this chart shows you, and this is a great way to start, just to kind of give you an understanding of what's going on here. So we see what the, starting in the year 2015, we see the cost and we see the tax levy every year, all the way across. This red number, essentially here, if I scroll back over, that's the estimated fund balance. It also tells us the fund balance policy about where we should be. Red means we're either over or under the policy, green means we're in line with the policy. Then we see the tax rate, okay? So for 2023, what we have proposed here is about $15,000 in continued improvements. We've started some improvements in 21 and 22 with the Route 332 Drainage District. Jim can jump in here with this. This would levy $9,984 against, that would be the levy, the tax levy for this district to make this budget balance. Again, keep in mind, every single one of these are their own individual budgets, so we have to do them one at a time. So this tax rate here for these 416 units would be $24 a unit, and that means that the average homeowner or business owner in the Route 332 Drainage District would pay $60. So that's just kind of explaining to you what this is. So I'll just pause there. Any questions about the formula or any of that? Is there any specific questions you'd like to know about that? So in 22, I think we're doing camera work.
We did camera work.
Yeah, and then this is for some continued improvements there with that. And then using some fund balance. You see, we're still well over what the fund balance policy is. It's in red here. We should be much less than that, but we know that there's going to be continued improvements in the Route 332 Drainage District, and our policy does allow us that flexibility that when we know that there's improvements coming, that we can continue to have that extra money and plan for those improvements. You can see the fund balance, we've been really trying to use it up as we've been doing these improvements. We're down from 170 to 70 instead of keeping all that money. We'll be doing exactly that.
What is it supposed to be, Doug?
This particular district should be about 10,000 on average.
Where does it say that?
So that's what the policy calls for, between a minimum of 2 and a maximum of 10. And we're currently at about 70. So, but we know that there's additional improvements to do. So, all right. Any questions on that one? I'll jump to another one here. A lot of these are really small when you start looking at all these special districts. This is the Lakewood Meadows Drainage District. You can see here that there are 644 units in this district. The other thing that this chart shows us is that we can see what is going on from one year to the next. And you can see here that there were 764 units in 22, and there's 644 units in 23. The reason is because some of those townhomes in 22 were listed by the real property data as being in this district when they're not really. So this is actually correct. It's 644 units instead of the 764.
So they've moved to another district?
No, they're a homeowners association that's responsible for the drainage and clean out, not the town, not the district. So this is a very simple, you see the levy here is $1,932. The expenses there match that. There's a little bit of money there. You see for the average homeowner, it's $3 a unit. The average homeowner is going to pay $7.50 for that tax. So I know these are really small, but this just to give you a good idea kind of what we have to do with every one of these. This is the Ashton Drainage District. You see here, no proposed levy. The only real money moving and coming is the interest income coming and going. Not really going anywhere. It's just we have to document an expense, so it's a balanced budget. So the next drainage district here, this one is a Fox Ridge Drainage District. This one also does not have any planned improvements for 2023. It's just the interest income here. The same for the next one is the Landon's Drainage District, no improvements there. But you see for every one of these districts, we do this. the number of units, we look at what the fund balance is, that's all computed here with each one of these special districts. The Oak Brook side, I'll go ahead, I'm sorry.
The units.
Mhm.
What does a unit mean?
So it depends on.
I know, but.
Yeah, so drainage districts, for instance, have different units than water districts or lighting districts, but I think it's 3 for an improved and 1 for a non-improved, I believe.
Correct, and also drainage districts are not done on your assessed value like water districts are. So everybody is equal in their unit cost for the drainage district. That's from the comptroller's office. That's why when you look at water, we do it by assessed value for the O&M. Drainage districts are done by benefit basis. Everybody's equal.
So like empty lot versus build on a lot.
Correct. If there's a house, it's 3 units. If it's a vacant lot, it's 1 unit. No planned improvements for 23 for the Lakeside Drainage District. The Waterford Point Drainage District is another one of our drainage districts. Now that one actually does have some expenses. There's a clean out, I believe, that's planned for 23 associated with that. So you see, and now this is a perfect example here, right? So fund balance was up higher. We're going to be using fund balance to help offset, keeping the rate relatively stable. It's going from in 21, 16, 12, and 22, 10, and 23. It still gives us enough money there. We're able to balance the budget. So it's actually a $6 annual decrease for the average resident as opposed to what it was, and gives us the money for that cleaned out because we built it up a little bit at a time in that fund balance for that district. So they're not hit with a big bill all at once. I think we're almost done with these. Yeah, the Stablegate Drainage District is the last one. No improvements planned for at least 23 anyway. Okay. So that concludes, I know, this exciting drive-through drainage districts. Any questions on that? All right. So lighting districts, let me jump over here to that one. The first one here is the Centerpoint Lighting District. Now, we just showed you the unit charges. Lighting districts are based on assessed value. So you see here, for instance, for every one of these lighting districts, and you'll see this with a lot of these different districts, you see the assessed value, and you see it stayed very consistent here from one year to the next. We're going to show you what the average assessed value is, what the average person pays in this particular district, the number of units, et cetera, et cetera. So this bill here, basically this $1,800, that's the electric bill. That's essentially what it is. There's nothing else there. The improvements were done a few years ago, back in 21, where a lot of those lights were converted to LED. I think they were all converted to LED, right?
Yes.
So you see the tax rate does go up 2 cents per thousand on that. So it is a $51 increase for those average. That is primarily commercial entities with the Centerpoint Lighting District, which is why the assessed value and the average is so high specifically for those. Fox Ridge Lighting District, that's a residential lighting district. Obviously, you see there are some improvements that are needed. The cost of the electric bill essentially is a fairly significant expense there. That takes the tax rate you can see here from 28 cents to 29 cents for 23. You see the average or the total assessed value for the district went up a little bit. You see what the average home in that particular district is assessed for $279,728. They would be paying $82.39 per year. That's up $3 from the previous year, so relatively flat. Landings Lighting District, there's no expense. We actually don't even get an electric bill for that. We still can't figure out where that one light's plugged in that still is always on, but so anyway. Lakewood Meadows Lighting District, again, very similar story here, very basic. The electric bill, essentially, you've got a 1 cent tax rate, which is consistent with the previous year there. Fallbrook Lighting District, this one, again, very similar story. It's essentially the light bill here. It's a penny. You've got the assessed value, you've got what the average home pays, $38, and it's an increase of $5. So that's the lighting districts. Any question on those? At least we've touched on both of those fun and exciting stories for you. Sewer district, let me just touch on that. We operate one sewer district in the town of Canandaigua. That's the Purdy Mobile Road Sewer District. That is a very flat, the annual fee is always $18,210. It's a levy because it's a special financial arrangement with Empire Facilities Corporation. And it doesn't change. That's the Portland Road Sewer District. I want to jump to water districts, if we can go through those relatively quickly, and then we get into some of the fun stuff. Canandaigua Bristol Water District. I think you all know we operate a water district that crosses over into the town of Bristol. It's actually technically just like we have in our other Canandaigua Farmington Water District. We have the Canandaigua Bristol Water District of Canandaigua and the Canandaigua Bristol Water District of Bristol. We administer that district for them. It has a very unique setup in that it has both a tax levy based on the assessed value. It also has a per unit assessment for the debt service due to the high construction cost of it at the time. This one has been a challenge. This district does not have a lot of money. It's, you can see here that every little bit has a big impact on this district. There are improvements that are needed here. Jim I was giving Jim a hard time last week because he had to replace something to make the tank fill, and I'm like, we don't have the money for that. But it's this is a challenging district.
It's hard to do any sort of maintenance when there's no money to maintain it.
This particular district also needs improvements to the water tank. We've been working for a very methodical plan now, I think for about 5 years, where 1 year we would budget for money for some engineering. The next year we would do it, or for grants. The next year we got the grant, so then we could do the preliminary. I mean, we had to take it really baby steps, one step at a time for a very long time. This particular district does show a tax increase going in the tax rate from 56 cents to 69 cents. You can see here the unit charge in this particular district stays the same. Both residents of Bristol and Canandaigua pay the same unit charge at $187. They both pay the same tax rate. That's in the agreement between the town of Canandaigua and the town of Bristol that was done at the time. They pay the same tax rate, but we need to increase the tax rate to help balance the budget. Even still, with going from 56 cents to 69 cents, we're going to have to continue to increase it over the next couple of years with the additional improvements that need to be made. So this isn't done yet. And you can see that if all of the expenses for 22 are really spent and we do everything in 23, the fund balance would only be $7,000. And actually, I know we have a $2,000 bill right now for those annotation rods. Is that what's
Anno rods.
Which will reduce that even more. So that one is probably one of the districts that we have to watch the closest when it comes to expenses. And we'll have our annual meeting. Some of you have participated in that, some of you haven't, with Canandaigua and Bristol. In terms of water, we need to have that conversation again with the town of Bristol. Any questions on that one? Okay. Next one, Canandaigua Farmington Water District. Basically, the north half of the town, about half of the population of the town is served by the Canandaigua Farmington Water District. This particular water district is currently administered by the town of Farmington. The supervisor of the town of Farmington actually puts together the budget there with the Farmington Water Superintendent and what their proposed costs are. In October, we'll have that joint meeting with the town of Bristol and the town of Farmington. I was estimating that the cost for 23, because they never have the number by the time I'm working on the budget, I was estimating that the cost would be $216. He actually just gave me the new number is actually $229.76. So you can see here when I move that changes the tax rate from 85 cents to 89 cents per thousand. The average homeowner would pay $259. That's about a $10 increase. Now that is not inclusive of any of the improvements with the water tank and the brickyard and all that stuff. The other thing I know, Terry and I were in a meeting the other day and I made the point, it's also, it is what it is, but you've got, when we talk about Canandaigua Consolidated here in a few minutes, it's significantly less for the resident of the town of Canandaigua who lives in the Canandaigua Consolidated Water District than it is for the resident of the town of Canandaigua who lives in the Canandaigua Farmington Water District. So for instance, with this
Doug, I have a quick question.
Yes. Go ahead.
Sorry, has there been an increase of units in this area?
No, this is all based on assessed value. There are no.
Oh,
units-
it's assessed value. Thank you.
There are no units associated with any of the water district. It's all assessed value. So you can see here that the assessed value, great question though, Adeline. You can see the assessed value in 2021 was 241 million in 2023 or 22, I'm sorry. Let me just clarify that for a second so that everybody understands that. When we do the budget, we base it on the final tax roll. The final tax roll is always the July 1st final tax roll the year before. So this 241,537,546 number when we prepared the 22 budget was the 7/1/21 final tax roll. It always has to be the final tax roll from most recent final tax roll, right? So it was previous, right? So this 248,837 number that I have to use for the 2023 budget is the 7/1/22 final tax roll. Just wanted to make sure everybody understood that.
Thank you.
Yep. Now, the other thing that happened there that I still am not convinced that everything is accurate, we consolidated, you may remember earlier this year or late last year, we rolled in the Andrews Road Water District. We consolidated it with Canandaigua Farmington Road Water District, and you see that's $8.3 million in assessed value. So what that leads me to believe is this number here should be at least 249 million, and you see it's not. So it makes me question what's really going on there, but I have to use that final tax roll number for right now. And I've instructed the town assessor to figure out what's going on and why that number is not as high as I think it should be. Because obviously that directly correlates to the tax rate and what the residents are paying. All right, so any questions on that? So for instance, this is a change from the preliminary budget, this number that I just got from Supervisor Inglesby at 229.76. So what I'll do as well as any other changes that you guys direct, you can make any changes to the preliminary budget that you would like. I'll put that in a resolution form for your October town board meeting. We'll spell those out so that it's clear what the changes are, and then we'll go from there, right? McIntyre Road Water District. A lot of these I think will go relatively quickly. This is a water district that's operated by the town of Canandaigua. You see the tax rate remains flat at $1.84. The tax levy, $7,243. That's using $1,100 in fund balance. We're a little bit more than where we should be in terms of fund balance. You see we should be on the maximum side about $2,800, but we're working in that direction without doing it all at once and helping to keep a fairly consistent tax rate. You know, the goal is always, as you hear me say many times with the tax rate, it's better if it's a choo-choo train than a roller coaster. And so keeping that nice steady as we build up. So any questions on that one? The Emerson Allen Road Water District is another water district that's actually administered by the town of Farmington. We levy for it. It's a town of Canandaigua district. I just got the new number from Supervisor Inglesby. This one is going down by $300. So it'll be a slight variation versus what I'm showing you here for the balanced budget. But this essentially is the principal and interest. We have to break out the debt service, the principal and interest, and then the operations maintenance that we pay to Farmington for the district is $5,000. So the tax rate you see here for this particular district is $3.47 per thousand. So that does go up, goes up for the average home, $52. So that is an increase. Just want you to be aware of that one. The assessed value, one of the reasons driving that increase is the assessed value dropped. Again, that's a red flag to me. I don't understand why the assessed value dropped. Now, I did ask the assessor to look into this one before we even got to this point, and he said that there was a settlement relative to an certiorari case that I believe involved the county. And that's one of the things I know some of you that have been around a few years, Terry, you've heard me preach this many times, when the IDA or does a deal on a pilot or on a certiorari case, that really impacts our residents when that assessed value comes off on these special districts, because these special districts are so small to begin with. It really has a pretty significant impact. So that one is an increase. Any questions on that one? All right, County Road 30 Water District. This is one of the town of Canandaigua's water district. You see here, just as an example, the debt service principal and interest. You can see here this TOC 1190. Let me just tell you what that is real quick. So we have an agreement between all of our water districts. I know I put something in the AR a couple of weeks ago. All of the water districts that are administered by the town of Canandaigua pay a fee to Canandaigua Consolidated Water District for the administration of the water district. That's how they helped pay them. And that's an agreement, a contractual agreement that's in place between all of our water districts and Canandaigua Consolidated. So for instance, this $1,190, it's 30 cents, for instance, of the total 50 cents operation and maintenance base number. That gets transferred to Canandaigua Consolidated as a source of revenue. 20 cents of the 50 per the agreement stays with the particular district. What I was saying to you is that formula of 50 cents is based on at least 5 years ago of what the operations and maintenance cost was at the time, and now the operations and maintenance cost is significantly more with the new water tanks than 50 cents. That is something that needs to be revisited in 23. It's too late to do it for this year, but during 23, we should update those agreements so that when the 24 budget is being done, then it has the correct numbers. So, okay, fund balance, we're actually in good shape there. We're within the range of 5,200. You see the tax rate here at 382. The assessed value stayed consistent. It shows us the average home pays $504 per year in taxes for that water district. That's up $3 from the previous year. Any questions on that one? Hopkins Grimble Road Water District, very similar story. I won't go through all the details. The tax rate's able to go down just a little bit. The assessed value stays consistent. It goes down by about $14. We're able to, again, try to work that fund balance into about where it should be. No real big expenses coming up with that water district. So any questions on that one? Hickox Road Water District is a unique situation. This water district was created a long time ago, and what we discovered through, as we were working through quite a few of the different financial things in 2017 as we were doing our financial conversion, that this water district actually owed Canandaigua Consolidated at the time $33,582. That's why this fund balance is shown in red each year. I think it was 2017 or 2018. We actually created an agreement that this water district would actually repay Canandaigua Consolidated Water District $2,500 each year until that debt is paid off. It's slowly working its way down. You see there's still about $18,000 that's owed. It keeps the tax rate relatively consistent at $2.13. See the assessed value there. Once the debt is paid off on this, this will be able to be rolled into Canandaigua Consolidated, and it'll increase the assessed value of Canandaigua Consolidated a little bit there. Any questions on that one? Knott Road Water District, I'll just real quickly look at that one. That's very similar. You see the tax levy has stayed relatively flat. Tax rate, $2.62 a thousand. The average home would reduce by about $4. Again, it's primarily driven by the debt service, the principal and interest. The interest goes down just a little bit from what it was the previous year as the principal gets reduced, just like a mortgage. The next water district here, I guess tired of talking about water districts yet. County Road 32 Water District, you can see this one. This one is a similar story where we actually, this particular district, when this district was created not too long ago, it was decided instead of bonding outside and paying outside interest, that the money would actually be owed to Canandaigua Consolidated. They actually pay interest to Canandaigua Consolidated. And so they're paying their debt service principal and interest to Canandaigua Consolidated. It's a source of revenue. Keeps the tax rate relatively flat at $4.89, and there's still about $50,000 outside remaining on that. Questions on that one? Okay. Then we have our parent water district. This is Jim's home away from home, Canandaigua Consolidated Water District. So big thing, just like you would see in the general fund or highway fund, revenue and expenditures, right? So the revenue side here, and it's all got to balance out. Revenue side, we're showing $1.9 million in revenue coming in for Canandaigua Consolidated Water District. The tax levy being $695,000, that's up. You've got your water sales, your water meter sales, et cetera, et cetera. On the expenditure side, these are all categorized by the New York State Comptroller of Accounts. This is all the stuff like your employees for the water department, the superintendent, for instance, the equipment, meter readings, there's meter stuff. I won't go into all the details, happy to answer any questions, or we can pull up more details if you'd like. This also includes, when we did the water project, the principal payment is $240,000 a year, and the debt service interest payment is $62,100 a year for Canandaigua Consolidated Water District. We did start a few years ago adding a contingency fund in this district each year with the budget. Bump that up just a little bit to 25,000, just because there's those oddball expenses that come up. Where we land here is a tax rate of 73 cents per thousand. So for the average homeowner in the Canandaigua Consolidated Water District, they'll pay $236 in property taxes for that water district. That would be up $14 from the year before. And you can see the assessed value has gone up to $946 million. So, any questions on that? Okay. Now that you're all excited about special districts, all right, so there's two more special districts that we need to talk about. We need to talk about the Uptown bid and fire. So fire, it works the exact same way. We have a special district. We know the assessed value for the special district. The assessed value for the special district is 1.4. The taxable special district assessed value is $1.495 million. There are 4,000, and I apologize that Charges doesn't have it, but there are 4,999 parcels in the town.
1.495 billion, right?
Billion. Yes. Did I say million?
Billion. You're selling us way short.
Right, exactly. 1,495,000,000. How's that? So
there you go.
All right. So based on what I'm proposing to you, what I've proposed to you, with contract with the city at $750 and a contract with Cheshire at $590 for 2023, the average homeowner would pay $268.05 per year, and that's an increase of $33. You know that I have given you charts in terms of what that would look like in terms of if that was increased. I have requested multiple times, including as late as yesterday from the city manager, an update in terms of the number of firefighters, because I just want to be clear. Terry, you asked me a question in the town board meeting about the current number. The current number is 15 career firefighters plus the fire chief, 16. So I have started rephrasing very specifically my emails to the city manager of what his proposal is. And what I've asked him is to provide us a number of 17 career firefighters plus the chief, and a number for 18 career firefighters plus the chief, to be very, very clear about what it is that we're paying for and what we're getting. But that's the conversation. And truthfully, we have time. You don't have to decide this tonight, but it's, that's kind of where we're at right now, is I'm waiting for that number from him.
So we don't know what that's gonna look like.
What I pitched him a concept of.
Because we had talked about, getting to that larger number.
Yes.
Over a period of time.
Yes.
Which, is the same thing we've done with other contracts.
Correct.
To get to that point over a period of time, rather than a big jump 1 year, kind of get there, but over 3 years.
Right.
That's what we do with the O&M and water and
Yeah.
consolidated district.
And then the other thing, as you all know, I don't know that the public really understands this, with the rebound coming up. Even though there are those who quickly dismiss that, we understand that there is probably going to be an increase in the assessed value. This is all based on the assessed value. So if the levy goes up and the assessed value goes up, then the tax rate will likely also go up. If the levy is able to stay consistent or go down and the assessed value goes up, then the tax rate would go down. But then understanding what the impact, so I just changed this here just so you could see from where it was. I just changed this, if we made this number 825, just so you could see it, and leave this number 590 at 14.5, that jumps the tax rate based on the current taxable value up to 95 cents a thousand. So that's $50 extra for the average house, $48.61 for the average house in the town of Canandaigua. what I asked the city manager specifically in the email on Thursday of last week, on Friday, and then again yesterday was, does 825 get us 18 career firefighters plus the fire chief? And the silence tells me no, but I'm waiting to hear that.
Doug, I have a question.
Sure.
I could be reading this wrong. It's my first budget review. In the 2021 budget, it looks like we went down that year in our funding. Is there a reason why we were not stepping up in 2021? Or am I reading something incorrectly?
So it actually did go down in 2020 because the contract was based on the actual number of active career firefighters, and they did not meet the contract, so there were financial penalties built into the contract because the city chose not to fill those positions.
Thank you.
Now, is there any, since this is a district that cover, the fire district, fire protection covers the entire town,
Yes.
can fund balances be used for this?
Yes, so there is,
Since it benefits everyone,
so there is a fund balance here in the district that's currently about 74,000.
can unallocated fund balances be used?
Well, the town board could always make a contribution if it chose to. It is a special district that's townwide, so yes, the town board
So we
could make an
wouldn't-
appropriation.
All right, that's what I was thinking. And we wouldn't get in any trouble with comptroller or with any sort of audit because it covers the entire town.
I've actually even seen it done in some municipalities where they actually will appropriate a portion of, for instance, sales tax. So you could say $100,000 in sales tax for that particular year, you're gonna appropriate to that special district because there's a benefit, you could argue, for the tourists and everything else, right? So, yes, so we have some flexibility in there, yes.
Is that also a place that ARPA funds could be allocated?
No, absolutely not.
No, okay.
So if we, and I'm just thinking out loud here, and it all depends on the number, because if we're not getting a number back, that's a little disconcerting that we're not getting that. It's like trying to hit a moving target. It's like trying to get a firm answer, which doesn't always come, which is quite disappointing.
Yeah, I know he's been at the ICMA conference, so I'll give him
All
a
right,
little bit of
okay, so,
information.
okay. So if we were, I would be supportive of funding in a creative measure for this year to get us over the hump without increasing that tax rate. So homeowners aren't hit with a double whammy with an increase in assessment next year with everything going up. Whether it be our sales tax has been running high. It's been running significantly higher over the last couple of years. Don't know if that's going to continue, but it's been exceeding what we've had budgeted. So that might be a place to take some of that funding and allocate it to that, to get us to that point. And I would fully support that. Because we've heard from residents on the outskirts, especially the Crystal Beach area, especially East Lake Road, they're very concerned with being able to have that. So I would be amenable to looking at that.
The hump just
To
moves
bridge.
though. Because
It
that's gonna
does,
be there. You could pull money for this year, but then that total amount you're giving is still gonna be
right,
there for
but
the next year.
but if we bump, if we do the increase, say we take that increase to 8.25, and then we allocate money from sales tax, then, that gets us to that point. So maybe next year we allocate half as much from sales tax. So it might be a two-step process, a couple-year process, but it's just softening the blow and getting us to that point without the big jump in taxes.
Well, at some point, you're gonna have a jump in taxes, but, that's just back to life, I think. Cost is, earlier, I can't remember your name on that.
Corey.
Yeah, pointed out, everything's going
Right,
up and
it
the
is.
costs are going up and it's just, what we were asked to do this year was just real
It was
gut
a-
punch. I mean,
yeah, it
it was
was.
just so much 62% increase all at once, and it's hard to absorb that, but using some of that unexpended fund balance, of course, we always use that to help offset the budget the following year. So I
Right.
mean, you don't
But
want
I mean,
to,
right now,
you have to
we're,
balance.
we're what, 2.5 million of unallocated fund balance?
Yes,
Yeah, there-
however, there is appropriation.
Right, we have some appropriations, but I mean, that's above our policy, so we need to adjust that. So I mean, if,
Well, again, you could always do it on sales tax and it could be funded in 23 without touching really anything in 22.
Right.
You know, if what you're talking about is $75,000 increase plus or minus, right? That's easy to say.
right,
First quarter sales tax, we're gonna take that 75,000 and
Right.
appropriate it.
so I mean, even if it was some sort of match from, you know, we go to 825 and then, so we're raising the levy, we're raising that rate, that we're going up to 825,000 contribution. And then we were like, okay, we'll match that with 750, 75 from sales tax, or get a match to get us to that.
What,
that.
Well,
what do
I
you
think-
want
Should be
for the
contingent, though.
825 though, right?
It should be
Right.
contingent on a number of firefighters.
I want that number.
Yeah, we've been pushing the city for years to get to that
Mhm.
18 people, so.
Now, is that 18 including the fire chief?
No.
Or not, right?
No.
So,
So when we
and that's
talk
where I
18,
think there's a disconnect,
when we
because
talk
when we've
18,
always
I don't-
talked, we've talked about
Right.
18 career firefighters plus the fire chief.
Agreed.
I think for our discussion, I think that's where we all are, at least that's, like, when I say 18, I think 18,
Right.
18 of you guys who are sitting behind me, like that.
I
So-
like, sorry, I like the concept of tying into the tax rate, since that seems to be where we're getting extra funding coming in right now anyway. That is, we aren't finding a purpose for, so I think,
Tax rate?
I'm sorry?
Sales tax rate,
Sales
right?
tax rate, yes. I think that's an excellent suggestion, and I don't know how the rest of the board feels about that. Are we talking about doing that as a temporary activity or as something we'd be entertaining going forward?
I guess part of it would depend on the length of the contract, so
Mhm.
if it's a 1-year contract, it would be a one-off, but it could be a 1-year contract next year and do the same thing, so.
But I would also like to
it's-
be to the
But you
point,
need to know the,
I would like
the
to be
answer
to
to
the
that
point where if
question.
we can get closer to that funding number, to
Yeah.
get the 18,
that's,
our definition of 18,
Yeah.
then we will, then I'd like that 3-year.
oh,
If, ideally, I'd like that 3-year contract as part of that.
And I like Terry's idea of tying it to the number of firefighters.
Oh, we have to.
yeah, but we gotta get that. I mean, I don't think we can decide it.
No.
It's a good concept.
Right.
I think,
Yeah,
can we agree on the concept of
Yeah.
pulling some of that? Because for several years, we've trended higher with sales tax, and I know
Oh,
that offsets, and I know that offsets all the other, it helps.
Proposing to use more of it next year.
Yeah, it helps, and it'll help, but we also need to be mindful that we need to make sure that we're not sucking that away, because that fund balance the unallocated gets out of whack, and then we've got to find places to put it. I know Jim always has places where you can put the fund balance and find
Yeah.
places for it, so there are places to use it, but I think public safety and fire protection is extremely important, and I don't want people to think, and I hope that our questions at the last meeting didn't come across as being negative towards the presentation or negative towards what the city's been providing. I just think we owe due diligence to the residents of the town.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, we know that am I protected? Do I get water from my faucet? Can I drive on safe roads? Those are the big three.
And we
Public
have been
safety's gotta be number one, for sure.
We have been talking about 3-year agreement, and then, there's some increase there that the city has requested over the 3 years, but I think it goes back to the fundamental question of, I know that when it has been said there are 16 firefighters, that includes the fire chief.
Right.
And the fire chief is responding, don't get me wrong, and
Right,
everything
he's
else.
out there.
But I think
He also
what
has
I've heard
other
from you
duties.
guys consistently is 18 active career firefighters plus the fire
Right.
chief.
Well, that's what the fire study told us a few years ago. It isn't just protecting property and lives, it's protecting the firefighters too.
Yeah.
Having enough guys there at one time to safely fight the fire, and that's
Right.
critically important too.
Now, where are you at if the city says it's 17 plus the chief and that's all they're willing to do?
I think that's.
Talk about it October 3rd.
Yeah, hopefully we're not there.
Okay.
Hopefully we can, a little give and take, and hopefully that's something that we can figure out.
Okay.
Because that gets that's closer to the number that they desire.
Well, and the other thing about the 1-year sales tax allocation, right, hopefully that gives time for the county to hopefully step up
With that
some
fire,
money
right,
and some
and that
other stuff.
September report should be back,
Right.
and then public safety should be making decisions
Exactly.
on how to go from there.
Right. And then also, from the memo that I've prepared for you, that while this specifically for Cheshire is 23 at 590, our penciled concept is 590 for 23, 780 for 24, and 890 for 25. And we've had conversations about the mutual aid response between the city and Cheshire, and that if, we want to see that actually in the written
That
agreement,
needs to be in the 3-year agreement
that city's automatic
that they're
responding
each
to
other's
certain
first
areas,
mutual
Cheshire's
aid.
automatic responding to certain areas, et cetera.
Yes.
So, and I know both chiefs have met, which I greatly appreciate, and they've communicated.
Yeah, I
which is
think that's a
wonderful.
key part of it.
Anything else on fire for tonight?
Any other comments? But Adeline, anything else for fire?
No, thank you.
So I guess we wait and see.
And let me talk to the city manager. I believe he's back. I think he was coming back today from the managers conference was in Ohio. So, the Uptown bid is our last special district. It's a brand new district, the first year of a tax levy. The assessed value currently for the Uptown Business Improvement District is $55,126,000. I think we all agree that in time that'll continue to increase and grow, and which will result in a lower tax rate. This is completely based on the levy versus the assessed value. So the proposal is a tax rate of $3.79 per thousand. Now, what does that get you? And I have to flip over to the other sheets to talk about the particulars, but the overwhelming majority of the cost here would be for the financing relative to the purchase and installation of all new streetlights on 332. And I know we have a lighting problem in the parking lot right this minute that Jim's trying to fix and turn the lights back on for everybody, but if you've driven up and down 332, the lights are horrendous. They really are on 332. So this special district would absorb the installation of new lights, right? And we need to talk a lot more about the details and what that would look like in terms of, do we go with the higher technology lights that we can do things like partner with the Downtown Business Improvement District to do hanging baskets? Do we decide to go with the light poles that provide Wi-Fi? So we're providing Wi-Fi for Uptown. There's any number of conversations we need to have. We just aren't there yet. So I look at this as a placeholder right now. The other numbers here, I'll flip over to the other page in a second. The other number here are specific for equipment and contracting for like snow plowing. We've said all along that the Uptown Business Improvement District would plow all the sidewalks in Uptown, would take care of the landscaping, would take care of the medians, would take care of the beautification and all that stuff. Those are the other costs that we've built in here. I think my biggest concern is obviously going from 0 to a tax rate of $3.79, right? That's a pretty big jump.
Yeah.
The average parcel in the Uptown Business Improvement District, oops, scroll down too far, is 455,000 is the average parcel. So that average parcel would pay $1,725, right? So yes, we could definitely scale this back. And again, it's not something that necessarily has to be decided tonight. We can flesh this out a little bit more. Even delaying or how we go about doing the streetlights, but you stepped out just as I was talking about 332 streetlights. Jim and I think are in 100% agreement they got to be replaced.
Yes.
So it's a matter of how we do it. Or again, do we make some sort of allocation also to help with that project? But and it also depends on the type of streetlights we buy, the expense, right? Some of them are much less expensive than others, and we need to have those conversations.
So,
Doug,
go ahead, Adeline.
how many of those parcels are commercial, industrial versus residential?
Residential were excluded from the Uptown Business Improvement District.
Thank you. Okay, that's what I thought we had done. So it's all commercial, industrial.
Yes.
Okay.
How many parcels are there? Do the math there, I guess, but
300-ish. It's not done by unit, it's done by tax rate. I think there's approximately 300, give or take.
how many of them are aware that this is coming?
I think a lot of them, but I think the extent to the number, right? I think this would be a shock, to be honest.
Yeah, some of the smaller places that might be struggling to get by. There's some that it's,
Right.
it is what it is. I
Right.
mean, we've got, and it's not gonna be an issue, but for some that are just.
Well, and even some of the larger ones like Pactiv, what, I mean, can't imagine what their assessed value is and what they would be paying for this, but.
Well, the average is the 455, but what they pay for water and electric, they wouldn't even bat an eye at this. They told me.
Okay. Okay.
But I think the other thing is, right, if we're providing all the snow plowing, I think about all those car dealerships that they're paying for all that now, right? So we would be doing all of that.
Would we
They're
be
hiring.
doing their lots?
No, just the sidewalks,
sidewalks.
just the sidewalks, right? And the
Say,
ongoing
Jim, you
trouble,
good with that?
the ongoing trouble that we have with enforcing the sidewalk.
How many of them are plowing now? That's the problem.
I would say more than half,
Are they?
but that's about it.
Because that's been a complaint in the past.
Yes, right, and
They
then
don't
people
plow, they're
having,
supposed to, but they don't.
right, and I can't even tell you the number of complaints we've had about, for instance, veterans from Liberty Apartments walking on the street because the sidewalks aren't plowed, right? And so, now, this can definitely be scaled back, you know, but I wanted to at least shock you a little bit here and have this conversation, to be honest with you. We need to get serious about it.
Jim, what are your thoughts on the lighting up there? What would you like to see? Have you given any thought to what,
Oh, I
for you
said,
guys, for what you would like to see up there?
as far as style, cost, what do you think?
Yes.
I mean, you know, the heads are shot. There's two dissimilar metals that we can't get them apart a lot of times. We're drilling. The capacitor, I'm sorry, the multi-tap transformers burn out, the starters burn out, the modal bases burn up, the handholds get wet. The list goes on and on about the maintenance issues for those.
So what would you like
currently.
to, would you like to see phased in? What would be easiest for you guys, phased in or all at once?
Well, I would like to see some sort of contract about to replace them, because I don't think you're gonna replace the base and the head just because find a similar bolt pattern might not work with the current base itself, so you might have to replace the base also, depending on what style you choose. You could also look at removing that. It's a cast aluminum. What would it cost to sandblast and repaint them and put a new head on them is a possibility. I got a recent price the other day just from a vendor because I was curious, you know, it's just the pole and the fixture is $5,000 alone, you have 72 of them. Okay, that doesn't include installing them. All right, so you're several million just doing street lighting. To get that done.
How many are there?
That's
72.
72. How
And that's
much
why I
did
said
you
you
say
have-
they were?
They're 5,000 a piece, not installed.
And that's for a base without all the extra.
That's not without a
things.
base.
It's just a base?
No,
No,
that's the whole.
that's without the concrete base. Like you may have to, you know, may have to change it due to wind load. Maybe those bases aren't suited for that style fixture.
That's 360,000. How do you get that?
I'm sorry, I was off. I was like, Doug, okay, I was off.
Okay, you went the wrong, you went there.
Well, I'm wondering if I can ask Jim's, what can we get with 208 if that's still where we are? Jugs keep changing the
208,000?
numbers, but so what can we accomplish with 208?
Well,
You
really,
know-
26.
Well, so wait, so the 208 number, here, let me just change that back so that you can see what I'm showing. So the 208 would be what the levy would be, right? And that would include debt service of a couple of $1 million if you're gonna go in with the high end holes and all the other stuff, right? We have to figure all that out. If we're paying cash for it, then maybe we don't have the debt service. There's also performance contracts. There's any number of things we can do, right? But what I want to show you here is, so that's a tax levy of 208, right? So let's just hypothetically say we take that to 108 and then we figure out what we get for that, right? So that takes that tax rate down to $1.97, and that's $899 for the first year, right? So the other thing to keep in mind here is as Uptown develops, you're gonna have a lot more increased assessed value here over above this 55 million, right? So then that significantly starts to change this picture, right? So a slower phased in approach, even though we know we have to do something with the lights specifically, is probably one of the most important things we have to do. Maybe there's adjustments we can make to some of the other stuff in the meantime.
And that includes, is there bonding?
There's,
So 20,
yeah, there's bonding in here and stuff,
75.
but there's also like new equipment for the plowing,
Yeah.
which we know we would need and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Maybe there's other ways for us to go about that for the first year or two. As we
So
can.
back to my question, if we're taking out the debt, principal and interest and he's got 208, what can he do with that in 1 year?
Doug, does a 208 include equipment for snow plowing, or is that just, okay? So, I mean, I don't,
It doesn't, you're not gonna do much of anything. That gives you, if you take out the bonding, that gives you $70,000 to replace streetlights.
Yeah.
You're not going in.
But that airline, that 208 number includes about a $2 million.
Yeah.
So that includes that 2 million.
My question though is still, I mean, let's say we didn't take out the bonding. I mean, is there anything that he could accomplish with 208 completely, just, without paying debt services?
But then that wouldn't cover,
It wouldn't cover the basis of.
it wouldn't cover getting the snow plowing and everything.
That's, okay,
All of that.
thank you. That answers my question.
It'd give us about 100,000
Yeah.
for lights.
Okay.
It's tough,
well,
especially for the first year.
you
because it-
gotta take the
Yeah, I mean,
labor of our guys doing the work to reimburse the highway from that special district
Right.
for that stuff. So, you maybe spend $2,000 on a head, that's great, but then we gotta get it off
Right.
somehow. So,
How many lights are on, how many lights are off?
there's more than half off right now.
Yeah.
So there's like 40 out of the 72 are
Yeah,
out.
probably.
And as that grows,
Yeah.
that becomes more.
Yeah,
work.
I'd say
Yeah.
more. Oh.
Back to public safety, yeah.
So, I mean, I'm personally more comfortable at that. If we come in the first year at almost $2,000, I'd be more comfortable at that $900.
Oh,
Because I
right,
think
right.
it's a heck of a lot easier to swallow. It's like, okay, it's under 1,000, I can figure it out. It just feels better.
Right.
Psychologically,
Okay.
especially I'm thinking for the business owners.
Yep.
I'm in favor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in favor of the bond because I think that's the most economical way for us to move forward. And most practical way, because stuff's not gonna get cheaper, so if bonding allows us to get in it more quickly, then we can make those inroads, and then we're spreading it out as the district grows.
And then it is the centerpiece, right? It's the
Right.
showpiece as you do all this other stuff.
And then,
so.
then it'll lessen the blow as we grow and expand, and the debt's spread out over more.
Oh,
So then,
uh,
again, sorry, Terry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Adeline.
I was gonna say, so then again, if we bring it down to that 108, how much can we get done in 2023? Just snow plowing then?
Well, let's Jim and I talk about that, and we'll get back to you
Yeah.
before the next one, because maybe what we can do is if we do a bond for the uptown bid, maybe we roll in the lights as well as the equipment.
Right.
And let's just look at it and write some numbers and we'll get back to you. So maybe we can do it all, but let us run some numbers.
Considering the safety aspect,
Yeah,
I mean, that's our lighting district.
Right.
There's an accident
Yes.
that is caused by the lack of lighting
Agreed.
and that money out one way or another.
right.
Mhm.
So
And I mean, I wonder if we could fiddle with it somewhere between 208 and 108 and get that number to almost exactly 1,000 down there on the bottom. So,
Yeah, well, I'll work on that, Adeline. We'll come back with.
So are people comfortable with the concept of bonding for that? And I would add too, for everybody, that is fully paid for by that. It's not a bond for the entire tax base of the town.
how much is the bond for?
To be determined.
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay. All right. You guys are making great progress. So we're down to highway and water. Want to do highway?
Sure.
So again, the spreadsheet's the same. We can go into the particular details, but the same thing we do is we look at the revenue, we look at the expenses, right? And so you've got the sales tax appropriation here, which is increased for 2023 in the budget here, up to 2.4 million. Tax levy increase to balance this out. the appropriation from the fund balance you see here and the expenses. Overall, and let's see, this one might be easier to look at in your book. Let me flip to highway, give me one quick second here.
What page?
Page 22. Page 22 is the overall chart that shows highway. And then, give me one second. You saw in my budget message to you, I spent a lot of time talking about highway and where we're at and where we're not at in terms of highway, in terms of expenses. That really starts on page 14, 15. I actually did some charts for you that shows where we would be in terms of the highway fund, capital and contractual expenses. And on page 16, I showed you if the highway fund, if there was a 3% growth factor where we should be versus where we're at on page 16, it shows you that chart. And you see that we're well underfunding there. What I'm suggesting in the budget is that we actually create a capital project for highway improvements, that we actually start to establish a plan for highway improvements for the next 5, 10 years, whatever it is, and that we set aside money at the end of each year so that we're not having to bond for road work, that leftover money when sales tax is higher or when everybody does a great job of keeping expenses down, and then we appropriate so much of that to the highway fund. Now, additionally, we've gotten good news since I even did the budget. We qualified for a grant. I know that Sarah had a call today with Genesee Transportation Council for us, and they said that yes, we would qualify for a grant for hiring a consultant to actually help us create this master transportation plan for the town. So there would be probably a small local match, usually it's 20%, but they're thinking 100 to 120,000 would be the total cost of the project to do it. Then we would have it, much like our sewer plan, our water master plan, all those, we would have a transportation plan. And then we could create the capital project and we could start earmarking.
And that's the best.
Yeah.
Then we can track it.
I like your idea of a capital project. I like being able to track what we're doing with it and have a place to put excess funds in case we have them.
So you can see here, looking at the chart on the screen here, personnel costs, we have a union in highway. You see personnel cost is basically, it is what it is. It just goes up just a touch there based on the union contract. Capital projects or capital equipment costs went up a little bit, but that is because there was a change by the auditors in how we account for the CHIPS money that comes from the state. They want it categorized as a 200 instead of a 400, so basically it moved the money from 400, which you see here on the next line, goes down a little bit, and then moves it up to 200. That's the difference there. We have our capital plan that Jim does a great job of trying to follow the best he can in terms of really laying out our equipment acquisition because the costs are so expensive. And we try to do a really good job of keeping those, again, flat like a choo-choo train instead of a roller coaster up and down. And the capital plan is actually in the budget here also. This, you see overall, this does include the tax rate for highway fund is combined with general fund. That's where the $1.06 comes from. But what questions can I answer, or Jim answer, please?
Yeah.
So medical, I'm just curious.
Sure.
442.
Yep. Went down. Yeah, it went down. Part of the reason it's gone down is we actually have had more employees take the buyout and go on their other.
Okay, so it's not because of rate, it's better rates.
No.
Rates were going up, weren't they, like
Yeah.
9% or something?
They are, so
Well-
you actually see that reflected in the general. But
Right,
highway,
so-
we actually had more.
Have we given any thought to joining in with other municipalities?
We've looked at that. Terry's gonna roll his eyes at me. We've looked at it many times. We actually, because of our full-time equivalents, we don't qualify for the current consortium, like for instance, that Victor has. However, Mr. Supervisor, and I always, no matter who the supervisor is, so I'm not picking on you. Tompkins,
but that's okay.
Tompkins
Before.
County has a plan where they allow all of their municipalities to buy their health insurance through them at a reduced rate. Ontario County's never done that.
Yeah, I think that might be something that needs to be brought up. Because, even we were looking at it and the county changed this year because of, we changed the college this year because of prices. Yeah.
Definitely,
I have a quick question.
No, and our health insurance, by the way, runs July 1st through June 30th, just so everybody's aware. Go ahead, Adeline.
I'm sorry, so your state grant line that's there listed at $55,000, what's that?
Other local governments,
Down,
50,
down,
state grant, 55.
55, right above
It's
it.
right above your 4.5.
Oops, sorry. It's right here.
Far right column.
No, that's
Average
an
2023.
average. That's average. That's the average column. That's not the 23 budget. We keep-
Oh, sorry, I thought that was the 23. Okay, thank you.
That's okay. All right, I don't know if you have questions specifically about specific lines in the D fund or not. I don't know if anybody has anything that we can, from the actual chart.
I'm just wondering what Jim's next vac truck fun thing that he wants is gonna be.
Oh, and, you know, I've talked to Doug a bit about some of the equipment that I was hoping to purchase in '23 that didn't make it due to cost, and try to keep the budget, the overall budget increase as minimal as possible, as he was instructed by the town board to do. So some of the equipment, like a new plow truck, typically we buy a new one every year. Right now, we're looking at a year and a half before we see it delivered. So if we don't buy one this year, we may be looking up to maybe 3 years before we see another truck. And that concerns me.
And that puts us behind.
And that puts us behind. You know, Doug and I have talked about other projects about how to bring in revenue to the town, which could work to help offset that expense when we do, say, a water project or a parks project, or sometimes stormwater projects. Take that money, and after, say, we get through partway through the year, we have X amount of dollars to go towards it that got reimbursed to highway, which I can live with, but I just want the board to know that some of these purchases, either way, need to be not extended just due to the longevity of even getting the equipment. Like our current dump truck that we bought almost a year and a half ago may or may not make it by the end of this year. So, you know, that's something that we've already encumbered once, and Doug will have to then turn it into fund balance. Then you'll do a budget amendment come '23 if it doesn't come till then, to put the money back in the budget for the expense.
But we run the chance of really violating our strategic equipment replacement plan,
Yeah,
which, I mean, was created by the town board really, but, I mean, you can modify it if we want to, but, I mean, that plan took into, at the time it was put together, delivery times weren't
no,
a year and a half.
Yeah.
They were reasonable, 4 or 5 months, and, you know, now it's just.
it's,
And
I'll give you an
you
example.
go
So
by
in
age and
October,
mileage and-
you know, October 17th, I'll be on with Ford to try and get some slots for our equipment, because it's one day. It's all this. You get 1 day to get your order in. If you don't get it in, you're not getting it next year. So,
Next year or in '24.
right.
Yeah.
What you're seeing on the screen, I just wanted to share. So this is the capital machinery equipment line, the 200 line is what we call them. This is where the highway equipment is. And you see here, the ones that are labeled as $1, and we do this on purpose to highlight that, hey, Jim asked for something, but it's not funded, it's funded at $1, right? This new dump truck splitting with water, for instance, or the excavator. Now, there's still $200,000 in new equipment, and Jim then will have to make a decision and make a recommendation to you, you know, instead of the paver, does he want to do an excavator, right? He'll have to make those decisions, but, you know, if we add another 100,000 to this, and I can flip back over to that little spreadsheet and show you what it would do to the tax rate, it's ugly quick.
Yeah. Right. So I'm with you on keeping the tax rates reasonable. A long term, it's going to be, if we continue this inflation, I'm not sure how the town continues $1.03, $1.06 when every cent raises $10,000 roughly. I mean, you're not going far with a 1 cent increase.
So here's where, again, that capital project, if we create that,
Mhm.
then we can earmark and we can save and we, maybe we get out, maybe it ends up being little by little, we keep the rate increasing
Right.
gradually.
We also do have a reserve fund that the budget doesn't account for us using any for equipment
The highway reserve.
specifically.
Is that
And then
for-
there's two of them. There's one specific for equipment, and there's one for actually roadway improvements. So
But you don't really want to touch that unless you're really
that's the
up
emergency
against the
fund.
That's,
wall.
yeah, say
And
that's,
back against the wall and it's,
let's say we had another flooding of
Water.
14, I was burning through money just to fix roads. So,
Does it ever come up that you have, I know that we came up and were able to get the back truck. Does it ever come up that equipment comes up? We got the one piece of equipment that came through the grader. What did we buy you? What did we buy earlier on this year?
The bucket truck. The
well, we
bucket
bought
truck.
a
Bucket
truck.
that we bought because it
Used.
came up like that.
Mhm.
Are you hindered at all? I'm thinking of our purchase policy. Are you hindered on making those decisions, having to wait for us to approve if
Well-
something were to come up?
Well, highway law allows me to purchase it with the approval of town board.
Right.
Expending those monies to allow me to go forward, like, I couldn't just say, hey Doug, I found this deal, let's buy it.
Right.
Oh, he does. Yeah, I mean-
He tries to.
He tries.
You know,
But what I'm saying is, if we can amend, we've done it at the county level, we've done it for police cars. Because the sheriff's department can't get cars,
Right.
just like you're doing. And we have given them permission to, if you have a lead on something and you can grab it, to grab it and then come back after the fact.
I think there needs to be a resolution written that the board understands that you're giving the highway superintendent the ability to spend up to X amount of
And I
dollars.
would, and I.
If something came along, and I would need to discuss with Doug prior to
And I think
purchasing
that's
that.
something that we should look at doing to give you that leeway. It might never
Mhm.
happen. But then your hands aren't tied because sometimes these things come up quickly and if
They
you don't
do.
act, they're gone.
They do, and I would want to have that financial long-term conversation with Doug, because he's going to say yes or no, and let you guys know if we should do it.
Yeah, we can definitely amend the procurement policy. That's not a problem, fill out for that. The big thing is where's the money coming from, right?
Right.
And so
Right.
it's what.
Right,
what
I
are
mean,
you
it would
offering?
be, yeah, right.
So, the other, not to complicate things, but the piggyback contract for the Onondaga contract is expiring. I'm not sure when they're going to renew it because they're losing money. So that's, I'm gonna have to find another avenue without having to actually create a bid to go out to bid and advertise it and get it back. So, it's not that it can't be done, it just takes a little creativity to find it. Okay.
Question on another topic, if I can. Are you guys good on this?
Yeah.
Do you know, does this include, I know in the PPW meetings, we've had a lot of conversation about funding those, I don't know what they're called, but those systems that would inspect the composite and asbestos piping. Is that included in the budget this year?
So it's not in the highway budget, it's actually in the consolidated water, the water budget,
Okay,
and it is in there.
perfect. Okay, because I'd
Okay.
like to see that done.
Yeah,
So thank you. I'm glad. Thanks for clarifying.
Anything else on the highway? That's the biggest chunk of highway is personnel cost, equipment, and then the contractual line is roads. And then the benefits.
That's what they do.
That's what they do, right?
Mhm.
It is. Everything else, all the other stuff is like general fund. When you talk about traffic signs and road striping, that's all general fund. We'll get to all that.
Mhm.
But that's everything else. All right. Is in the general fund? Okay. General fund. Look at that, we're gonna get this done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think
Not really.
That's okay.
we still have some questions that need answering.
We have to come back anyway, because
Yeah, we
Terry
gotta
said we have to come back on October 3rd.
All right,
I'll replay the
so
tape.
So much fun.
overall here, one of the things I wanna point out here to you is tax levy stays the same on one revenue side on this little chart here on your screen at the moment. Revenue for the tax levy stays the same. Everything, the increase was for highway. That's where the $1.06 rate goes from, right? The The sales tax goes up to 2.8 million plus 2.4 in highway. That's 5.2. In 2022, we had 5.4 is what we estimate. So that really is a big increase in the appropriation for sales tax.
Sales tax, yes.
Getting us more in line with what it's actually historically been the last couple of years.
Especially if we're talking about taking out
Yeah,
some
that's,
for fire protection.
And so in the past, we've taken a very conservative approach with budgeting for sales tax. But that has also driven these big, huge unassigned fund balances because we've under budgeted for sales tax.
Right.
So
the
this,
economy right now is kind of,
Yeah, that's.
questionable.
Mhm.
I mean,
The sales tax formulas based on what the county sets, and does that have an agreement, a beginning and an end?
It does. The agreement is in place. I don't think it's due to come up anytime soon. I don't know that it has an expiration on it per se. It's a formula
Right,
that includes the population, includes the assessed value. That does pretty well for us, right? It includes the sales tax that comes in. So this whole master formula is taken into account. And so the reason for that is even, for instance, if somebody buys something at Eastview Mall, we still end up with a portion of that because of that sales tax formula. Okay.
Can I ask another question? Do we know where and does the county have any guesstimate why that sales tax is coming in so high? Is that gas related, or do we know?
It's a combination of everything.
Everything,
It's a
yeah.
combination of people staying local. I would
Mhm.
say it's a combination of people staying local. It's a
and they're,
combination of people
they're
being here.
collecting internet sales tax now, right?
Yeah,
Online
so
purchases?
multiple things adding in there, and we are a growing area,
Yeah. Mhm.
and we continue to be. So we're funded, we're funded off of that. So I think it's a trend that we can bank on.
That's what my question is.
I don't
is
think that it's gonna continue. I don't see it decreasing, that
Okay.
we're decreasing, but it might increase as quickly.
oh, the price of goods has gone up to
Mhm,
0.25%.
It's gonna go
Goes
up, yeah.
Also, but,
mhm.
but
I go home and finish packing and get on the plane in a few hours.
Oh,
Drive to Texas for a wedding.
oh.
Yeah, fun. It's not my wedding.
Thank you, Jim.
What, 4:30? If it was, we'd have fun.
have fun, Jim.
See ya.
Thanks, Jim.
No.
Mortgage tax is the next line here. That's been relatively consistent the last couple of years. We saw an increase with COVID.
Yeah,
And with the home price is still up there,
Yeah.
the mortgage tax is probably gonna be fairly consistent. Cable franchise fees, those remain relatively consistent. It's worth a look at some point in time in the future. We have questioned Spectrum a few times on whether or not we're really getting what we should be getting based on our agreement with them. However, actually, it's Charter Communication now on Spectrum, but they're quick to point out, actually, cable services, it's actually dropping with more and more people having apps, more and more different things. My question is always, how come it remains so consistent as we add more and more units? I haven't quite figured that
But
out, right?
even with other apps and things, they're still using
Correct.
them for.
Yes.
Because we don't ask, they don't give us any more.
They're using that.
Park and rec fees, this is based on new construction, based on the number of units that we believe will actually be coming online in 2023. We went through that analysis, as well as the new form-based code fee for park and rec, based on the number of new units coming online in Uptown, we believe. Zoning fees are all pretty consistent.
Can you tell me
Sure.
the cemetery services, is that administrative in this line?
That is any burials. That's just Academy Cemetery. And
Okay, all right.
I don't even think
Spend
we
money you
had
can
one
spend.
this year.
I'm
So,
looking.
because we don't sell any more plots.
Right,
So
right.
people that have deeds,
Right, I understand.
plot deeds there, then they can be buried, otherwise they can't.
Right. Okay,
Rental of real property, that is property that we rent down in Ononda. Dog licenses, Gene thinks there's gonna be a few more dogs next year.
There will be, but the
It's relatively
cost,
flat in the cost.
yeah, the revenue is going to just cover the expense line.
so.
The rental
I
of
just
real
think
property at Oneida, is that just the house, Wayside?
Yeah, there's also, it's not just that, there's also the boathouse. That is in there, and then there was another one that, I think that we've got to relook at, but we got to talk about in executive
Is
session,
it
so.
sheriff?
Yeah, they pay, yeah, they pay.
What is the gifts donations? Is that benches and
Correct,
such?
any of those types of things, right? Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming, I know I've seen Gene's staff being very busy with marriage license issuing. I think, Gene, we discussed that was from some lack of staffing in the city potentially. Is that reflected in here as well?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, we did.
great.
That's the
Did we
town
not?
clerk fees right here.
Yeah, the
Oh,
vital.
yeah, that's what I was thinking that
vitals.
was.
Yeah, the vitals.
Mhm.
And, yeah, the town clerk fees. Yep.
And then the judges say they're getting busier and more busy, and so court fees going up there a little bit, so. Just trying to glance, we do have these other revenue sources relating to planning grants and parks fund relate specifically to expense side of things. Money to come into the general fund from the Uptown Business District, depending on the expenses that we have there. For instance, if we're gonna do plowing, what we've talked about is the Parks Department actually taking care of it, since they're less busy in the winter than our guys plowing roads. And then their time would be reimbursed back to the general fund from the Uptown grid.
They need to buy new equipment to plow up there?
Yeah, because
The
it's
sidewalks?
the width of
Oh, you
the
need to
plow,
get like
right? Yeah, we're gonna have to do something.
A nice little Kubota or something with a V plow.
And then the appropriation of fund balance here to offset the revenue. Now, that's the last, what I would call dial in the scheme of the revenues, so we changed that. That always is a goofy number depending on what the expenses work out to balance the budget. So as we go through and make changes to expenses or questions or whatever with that, then that may change there. Again, if all of the expenses for 2022 and 2023 were all expended, we would need $1.5 million in fund balance to offset all those expenses. But for the last 6 years, we've never actually used any of the appropriation. Everybody has always come in under budget. And so we actually and that is actually what has continued to contribute to that big increase in the fund balance, the outside fund balance. Just looking at the overview here real quick on the expenditure side, personnel costs going up. We'll talk about the details with that. Capital equipment going down. Contractual expenses going up. You can see the debt, principal, and interest, that remains the same. That's actually the highway building. That's what that is. That's a general fund expense. And then benefits going up because of the increase with personnel costs. Going down here just a little bit further, just so you can see that $1.06 tax rate, that breaks down 41 cents for the general fund. The rest of it's all appropriated to highway fund. The average assessed value town-wide, average home in the town of Canandaigua, based on the most recent data, is $282,934. That means that resident would pay $300.06 per year. That's an increase over last year at $9.23 for that $1.06 tax rate. With the assessed value, taxable value of $1.4 billion.
Why do we change some of our values, our average home values?
Yes, there's three
townwide?
different values throughout the document.
There's actually many. It's dependent on the district.
Because like
So
the
each-
fire fund is the whole town, and that was like 299.
Right.
That's, what is
And
282?
this is our 282, what's excluded.
So the difference is there are some properties that are taxable for fire that are not for general and highway funds. So for instance, you've got like not-for-profit entities, a lot of times that they're tax exempt for the general and highway fund, but they still have to pay a fire. That's why the difference, because all the average is taking is the total assessed value for that district and dividing it by the parcels for that district. That's where the average comes up.
And it's not tax cap compliant because of
Sure.
the increase?
Because of the bid.
Great question. Primarily the bid. Actually, if we reduce the bid, we could get very close to being tax cap compliant. But essentially, the formula is this, on this chart right here. Our 23 tax cap compliance levy limit is 3.7, okay? And we're currently at 3.9. We're over by 166,000.
The bid's not gonna get us
Right, exactly. And what I have to do is I have to total up the total levy of all of these, the general fund, the highway fund, all these special districts, the fire district. And of course, if the fire district goes up, that's gonna offset the bid, so we might still not be tax cap compliant, right? But if we appropriate sales tax, maybe we, I mean, it'd be close, but that's all the many different dials when it comes to budgeting, right? So the total levy you can see down here.
I mean, if there's a way we can fit all that a little further, that's very important to me, trying to get back onto that tax cap. I don't know how everybody else feels on that, but.
If we'd have a reval, would we be compliant?
No, because the formula that the comptroller's office uses, and you can see, I actually provided that, it's a very complex formula
Yes, it is.
that takes into account, it's actually a form I have to fill out, it's page 33.
Some folks.
And it includes the prior year levy, it includes all the pilots, it includes the exclusion amounts, your carryover levy limit that they allow. It includes all these different things, and so I have to plug all that stuff into their formula. Page 33 is where that is, if you want to look at that. And then that is the difference there.
I don't know that it really, $1.03 to $1.06, and we're not tax cap compliant is bizarre.
It's tough. Yeah.
To me, I mean, it doesn't, this is an artificial thing imposed by the state that for political purposes really is to make themselves look good, and
Have you talked to
municipalities like
other
us look bad, so.
municipalities? Are they struggling like this? I mean, are they way above the tax cap?
I would say the majority of the municipalities that I talk to that are involving managers that are working through the process are not tax cap compliant. There's a lot of municipalities in a lot worse shape than us.
Oh, I know.
And at the end of the day, it would be ideal. And if there was an easy way to get there, I'd support that. But there's no negative repercussion to our residents.
No.
I mean, it's a 3-cent increase. It's under 3% increase. It's under a traditional growth factor increase. And it's not like if, school districts and others stand with that tax cap, then your residents get a rebate check. The school's been good check. This doesn't have that same impact. So it's not like even doing this provides some sort of tangible benefit for the residents.
And the other side of the coin, though, there is penalty if you say you're gonna be tax cap compliant.
Right.
And then you
we're
have
not.
a
So if we
hiccup.
hadn't had that resolution, if we don't do that resolution every year, we're in trouble right now. Then we've got to cut.
So, but then you're penalized by the
Right,
state,
we got to
so.
wiggle down that 185.
And they do check. I can't even tell you the number of times I've had a representative from the comptroller's office sitting in my office for a half a day, going through everything. They do check that.
Yeah, I'm gonna be out that day.
I'm gonna have to head out at like 8:30. I'm sorry.
So it is 8:30. So we've done the overview. We'll be back on the 3rd of October, and where we can kind of get down into the nuts and bolts and some of the details and specific questions that we might have. Ways that we might be, tweaking that might happen. We won't have any other business before like we did tonight, so it should be a quicker meeting.
Is there anything in particular you want Doug or the staff to kind of investigate for you before that meeting?
Get
Answers
some
for?
answers from.
Yeah, the number one thing
is
is fire and uptown bid.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the big thing, and then other questions that I have are mainly just little parts and pieces and just general discussion questions that we would have as a group, nothing.
Is there a listing of new employees or new positions
Yeah.
in general?
You had a page in here, didn't you?
I mean, like wide, not,
Like what
Not-
positions are open right now?
no, what you plan to hire additionally next year.
That's in.
Yeah.
There's that funded, not funded.
17.
Page
Okay,
28.
that's the funded, not funded. All right,
Yeah.
on that page. Thank you.
All the rest of them are just
The
carryovers.
communications officer, there, over time, there've been a lot of people that say that we don't communicate well enough.
But we communicate in every way possible.
So I
The
did,
old town crier.
we could, yes, there we
Hire a
go.
town crier
There we
to
go.
stand on.
Excellent idea.
Now, keep in mind, for 2023, we've had some preliminary conversations. The CIC is supposed to be spearheading improved communications, looking at ways to do that, making recommendations, as well as economic development. That's the whole reason why the project teams, right, are now reporting their information to the town board. So even though the communications person is not funded, and I'm frantically looking for the CIC line, there is another line in here that has money for the CIC
Yeah,
to
it's
do
significant,
communications,
yeah.
yes. It's like 50 or some odd
50 to
thousand.
70, and that's those, yeah.
And truthfully, I think we'd be better off, my personal opinion, in contracting that out so that we don't have to pay the benefits of an
Right.
employee and everything else.
Right. Oh, I'm definitely, like, when, we're supposed to save this for next week, but numbers like that, I think next week are things that we could whittle down a little bit to see really where we are and tweak them a little bit.
I just wonder what forms of communication are we missing? We have MailChimp, we have a website, we have a big billboard up here now. we
The
have-
only thing that I can think of, and I reached out with the county on this, is reverse phone calls. They have a service for reverse, like
Well, like reverse 911.
reverse 911, where you can sign up and register, and if there's something that affects, like a public hearing, that affects where you live, then everybody would get pushed out a text message through this service. That's the only thing I can think of that would rise to the next level of really improving.
We do with those, well, we send out emergency, we have reverse
Right.
911 for emergency
Right,
stuff.
but
he's talking
the
about
county has a
informational, so-
program that we can get into, allows that to send messages for
Yeah, but don't
updates.
we send out like notices to those, written notices to those people?
Yeah,
For like the public hearings, for
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
planning and zoning, yeah.
Yeah.
We do.
That's kind of like a Facebook blast where you send.
Well, no, but it
Specific-
would come right to your phone, you get a text message.
Oh, yeah,
and say,
I mean,
oh, there's a
there-
public hearing.
He's making an Amber Alert.
Okay, no.
Well, I would agree with Terry on this. I think we do a lot of communications
Do.
already. And I mean, I think rather than acquiring an actual position or even a contract, there's a number of apps and things. I mean, there's the instant input app that I know Geneva uses and other, I mean, we get daily information about apps that could be helpful.
Yes, there are, but those are also expensive. We've looked at those. Those are easily 25,000, right? So when we talk about contractual expenses, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a contract with somebody. It's a .400 is what it's called. That could also be the fee for an app or whatever. But we can.
So
talk
these are
about those
discussions that we
details.
can have at the next meeting.
You don't want to stay tonight and finish it off.
What
I
that's-
don't.
What date is that?
Stop.
October?
October 3rd. October 3rd at 6, I believe.
And then we are in a courtroom,
Yes,
the
okay.
Anna Linder room.
All right. So, yeah, so the next meeting will be October 3rd, 6 o'clock. It's a Monday night. All right, if there's any other business to come before the board at this time? Okay, I assume I can forego the final privilege of the floor. Do you have anybody have any comments?
Thank you.
All right. So can I get a motion to adjourn?
Come on.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Feel better, Adeline.
Thank you.
Take care. All right, thanks for sticking it out. You get a bravery award or something.
Future town resident in the spring.